Busy time for Biden and his crew, and to break it all down, I have Andrew Kraft with me right now. Andrew, what's the latest with Biden and the transition team?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Daytona. You know, this is a really busy time, like you mentioned. We have a lot of good stories in the rundown tonight for the top stories, but we did want to start off with the Biden transition and what's the latest. He announced or it was leaked. He hasn't announced them yet, but some press outlets have reported that he has made decisions regarding 2 more cabinet secretaries. That's for the Environmental Protection Agency and for the Department of the Interior. As you know, they are responsible for administering the national parks, rather. So Fox's own Peter Doocy has the latest. We're going to listen to his story from today.
Nancy Pelosi's narrow House majority just shrunk even more, with New Mexico Congresswoman Deb Haaland exiting as Biden's pick to run the Interior Department.
As close as everything is in terms of the House and the Senate, they are tough decisions to make.
And there are new questions about whether certain picks have relevant experience, like Javier Becerra for HHS.
Start using facts and science to guide what you do.
His lack of medical experience has Republican Senator Bill Cassidy saying it's kind of like having a pacifist. Well, not a pacifist, but somebody without experience in defense being the Secretary of Defense. Then there's Pete Buttigieg for transportation. His hometown South Bend Tribune wrote in 2018 of major issues with potholes. It's the worst that area repair shops can remember in well over 10 years, with lines of vehicles awaiting repair for pothole-related damages nearly every day. This year, potholes were even part of Mayor Pete's pitch.
Every mayor who's gotten thousands of calls about potholes views this with a certain emotional passion.
Every Biden cabinet secretary will focus on climate change.
Well, I'm going to invest $2 trillion in infrastructure and clean energy.
And Biden wants former Michigan Governor Jennifer Granholm at Energy, North Carolina environmental official Michael Reagan at the EPA, and former EPA Administrator Gina McCarthy as climate coordinator. Democrats plan to hold these 3 accountable, with Senators Sheldon Whitehouse telling Axios there are quite a considerable number of senators who keenly believe that we missed huge opportunities in the Obama administration, and we just won't tolerate a casual, insipid approach. Republicans are readying for a confirmation fight.
Democrats are always lecturing Republican senators about approving future Biden cabinet nominees, even if we don't agree with them. Now that's pretty darn rich.
One leader pleased with the picks so far? Russian President Vladimir Putin.
We know all of them. We've worked with all of them one way or another. We don't anticipate anything unexpected here.
We just found out Cedric Richmond tested positive for COVID-19 today. He's a soon-to-be White House advisor who we saw in Georgia Tuesday amongst the cars at a Biden drive-in event on behalf of the Democratic Senate runoff candidates down there. The transition team is telling us this evening that his interactions with Biden at that event were in open air, masked, and for less than 15 consecutive minutes. In Wilmington, Delaware, Peter Doocy, Fox News.
So, Andrew, we'll get to that in a moment, but any other cabinet picks to be keeping our eyes on?
Yeah, so of course, Daytona, we're still waiting in the wings about who we think Biden will pick for his attorney general. But just to kind of break down a little more of these 2 picks from today, that North Carolina regulator, Michael Regan, who he's been tapped to lead the EPA. He's been in Biden's orbit for some time, but we do want to focus in on Representative Deb Haaland. She would be the first Native American to lead the Interior Department. And remember, Daytona, the Interior Department oversees the Bureau of Land Management, the Bureau of Indian Affairs. And so this would be a very symbolic pick for Biden, because there's never been any Native American, let alone a Native American woman for that matter, to lead the Interior Department. So it would be quite a symbolic move. Remember, Biden has pledged to have a very diverse cabinet. We did want to just go and bring that tweet up from his advisor today. We're learning, as Peter said, that Cedric Richmond, the congressman from Louisiana, has tested positive. They sent out a statement saying so we'll be following that as well. Daytona, I know I'll be happy when it won't be news anymore once someone in public life gets coronavirus, because we won't be getting coronavirus anymore at all. So I did want to just kind of focus in as well on this issue that Peter did bring up in his story. Now, remember, when Biden is picking and tapping these members, these Democratic members of Congress, to serve in key roles in his administration, that will ultimately shrink Nancy Pelosi's Democratic majority in the House. And so that's just something I'm looking for, because, you know, the majority is so narrow right now so far, especially after the 2020 election. Dems lost about 12 to 15 seats. And so if Biden, like he is doing, picking people to serve in his administration from the House, that's going to limit and shrink Speaker Pelosi's Democratic majority. So it might be a little trickier to pass some of the more controversial legislation in the House without a wide majority. Daytona?
Right. Let's take a look at what is on the schedule for not only Biden, but also for Trump. This saying right here that the president will be meeting with the acting Secretary of Defense. It is closed press, so we are not sure exactly what the topic is going to be on this, but definitely an interesting update that we're getting in right now, right, Andrew?
That is, especially, you know, obviously a lot of the things on the president's schedule could change. This could be open to the press, like right before with the pool coming in. But my kind of signals have been flared a little bit. Maybe he's going to meet with Christopher Miller, the acting Secretary of Defense, about this major hack going on within U.S. government agencies. Russia is potentially involved as that bad actor that is infiltrating a lot of government agencies and U.S. businesses at the same time. So maybe it could be about that. We just don't know. We know yesterday the president held a cabinet meeting that was closed press as well. There were reports, though, that the Attorney General Bill Barr was not in attendance for that closed cabinet meeting. We did want to just kind of bring up the president-elect's schedule going into the weekend. We know he will announce in an event that will bring it live here on NewsNOW, his climate appointees, probably at EPA, his climate advisors and what have you. That'll be on Saturday, 2:30 Eastern. That's per the transition. We'll bring that to you here live. Daytona, we also wanted to preview for you tomorrow. Remember, we told you yesterday, Vice President Mike Pence, Second Lady Karen Pence, his wife, and the Surgeon General will be getting their vaccines live on television tomorrow as well, and we'll bring that to you here on NewsNOW from Fox.
Yeah, and we also played out some interviews earlier with the U.S. Surgeon General, Jerome Adams. He's going to be getting it alongside Vice President Mike Pence, too. He was on Fox 11 Los Angeles talking about how he doesn't want any skeptics to think that the vaccine isn't ready yet. He's like, I'll get it alongside the vice president. So we, again, will be bringing that to you live here on NewsNOW from Fox. But we also have some other Biden news, but this one from Hunter, his son. So we'll play out this story coming from one of our Fox reporters as well.
Former business associates were hinting at a push to get Joe involved in a joint venture with Chinese energy company CEFC, hoping to make it look like a truly family business. That's according to text messages obtained by Fox News. On May 11th, 2017, Hunter's former associates James Gilliar and Tony Bobulinski corresponded on text with Gilliar writing, "Man, you are right. Let's get the company set up, then tell H and family the high stakes and get Joe involved." More Republicans are now saying it's time for a special counsel.
I don't know any other way to be absolutely certain that the investigation of Hunter Biden would be thorough enough and done in an appropriate manner.
Republicans are concerned about the calendar, recognizing January 20th is about a month away.
Traditionally, when a new president comes in, they fire all the U.S. attorneys. If he wants to show that this is going to be an upright, upstanding Biden administration and that they're going to actually let the cards lie where the cards lie on Hunter Biden, he needs to leave that U.S. attorney in place.
Joe Biden will not interfere. That's not in his DNA, just not in his DNA. And he believes in the rule of law, and I'll guarantee you it'll be done in a proper way, and I feel very confident about that.
President Trump tweeted this morning, "I have nothing to do with the potential prosecution of Hunter Biden or the Biden family." But a Judiciary Democrat says this is all about the president.
The whole focus on Hunter Biden seems to be a distraction for President Trump. It shouldn't be for us.
A longtime member of the Senate Judiciary Committee says he does have a concern.
I just hate to see a proliferation of special counsel. They are not accountable to anybody in particular.
This drip, drip, drip of new revelations could be making it more difficult for Biden to find an attorney general nominee, knowing that questions about the Hunter Biden probe will be front and center during the confirmation process. In Washington, Mike Emanuel, Fox News.
And stepping right forward, obviously, we'll be following the Hunter Biden investigation, but I really want to talk about this COVID-19 news today. Great things coming down for Moderna instead of Pfizer. Pfizer has been a household name for the past week because it did move forward with emergency use authorization after, of course, going through that FDA panel endorsing them and then getting the final okay. They're in distribution mode right now. And the same thing is happening for Moderna, right, Andrew?
Yeah, Daytona, that's right. The same panel recommended for authorization, for emergency use authorization, the Moderna vaccine. So very soon, Americans could have 2 vaccines that are available to them to combat and prevent COVID-19. We want to go out now to Casey Stiegel, our Fox correspondent. He has the latest on new restrictions that are happening across the country, but also all the news with the new vaccine.
Moderna's vaccine moving one step closer to joining the fight against COVID-19. An expert panel reviewing the candidate's effectiveness today. Just like Pfizer's vaccine, the FDA makes the final decision whether to greenlight Moderna's formula. But an authorization is likely after federal regulators confirmed the vaccine's safety earlier this week.
The FDA weighs the advice that it receives when taking actions on medical products.
Some 5.9 million doses of Moderna's candidate will be shipped out if authorized. Another round of Pfizer's vaccine will go out in the coming days, with the majority of nursing homes planning to vaccinate staff and residents starting Monday.
People just being exhausted from the COVID outbreak. What a great time for this to come. Really to put an end, hopefully, to this virus.
Public health officials say another vaccine simply can't come soon enough. The U.S. has now surpassed 17 million coronavirus infections, the daily number of deaths topping 3,000 for another day on Wednesday. Hard-hit areas like New York City weighing another round of restrictions in the coming weeks.
Certainly right after Christmas is a natural moment when the world kind of slows down a little bit.
Vice President Mike Pence will receive a coronavirus vaccine at a public event on Friday, trying to show Americans that it is safe and to get one when they can. That is the latest from Dallas. Casey Stiegel, Fox News.
In San Francisco's mayor and health director have announced a 10-day quarantine for people traveling to the city. They didn't mention California, but this is huge news for them. The quarantine applies to anyone traveling to San Francisco from outside of 9 Bay Area counties. The order goes into effect on Friday at 12:01 a.m. and will remain in effect until 12:01 a.m. on January 4th. It applies to different groups, including people who live and work in San Francisco. There are some exceptions, though, some exemptions, including medical workers and first responders. The order also discourages any unnecessary travel within the Bay Area. And in a statement, San Francisco Mayor London Breed says that COVID-19 cases are surging in the city and across the country, and hospitals in the Bay Area are close to being overwhelmed. This is something that we obviously have been following in the state of California. But Andrew, it's interesting. This is going into effect until January 4th. So let's see. All the holidays. That's canceling out all the holidays.
Yeah, things are just especially dire in California. And, lately, we haven't seen much interstate restrictions, right? We've been seeing just like within the state itself, but here in San Francisco, they're initiating this pretty draconian restriction, no more travel within to San Francisco for that time period. So remains to be seen if any other states follow suit. Cases are rising, deaths are now rising. I can't believe we've had so many days where deaths have surpassed 3,000. It's truly, truly grim.
Yeah, absolutely. But one thing that is looking on the up and up is this COVID-19 stimulus package. Andrew, I just want them to pass already so we don't have to talk about it every single day. But we have the very latest right now. We'll bring it to you.
Congressional leaders are optimistic a coronavirus relief package could be done in a matter of days. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says they're on the 1-yard line, but it may take a weekend session to get into the end zone.
Our citizens can't afford for us to get bogged down in the back and forth. Let's finish up our bipartisan framework. Let's make law as soon as possible. That's what our people deserve.
We have a responsibility to get this right. People's lives depend upon it.
A White House spokesman says, "We're optimistic we can reach an agreement within the next 24 to 48 hours. Lawmakers will likely have to pass a temporary funding measure because the federal government will run out of money Friday night. Then they want to pass permanent funding for 2021 and the relief package together.
I cannot imagine the unforgivable and embarrassing tragedy it would be if the government is shut down for our failure to reach a decision.
Help is urgently needed. 885,000 Americans filed for first-time unemployment benefits last week. The bill could help some of those workers get back on the payroll, with $300 billion for small businesses and the Paycheck Protection Program. Those who remain unemployed will receive an extra $300 a week. The deal may also give Americans a holiday bonus in the form of $600 stimulus checks. Ray Bogan, Fox News.
And speaking of those stimulus checks, one guy's not too happy about that number. I think President Trump is saying it needs to be a little higher. Isn't that right, Andrew?
Yeah, I was seeing reports from the Washington Post that advisors are telling the president that, his demands for higher one-time direct payments to Americans could scuttle these talks, could really make these talks go nowhere. We were seeing reports that he either wants $1,200 direct payments or even upwards of $2,000. So right now, as Ray said, it's sticking and hovering around that $600 amount. But the president hasn't really weighed in much on these negotiations. He hasn't been, in the room with Pelosi, Mnuchin, McConnell, Schumer, what have you. So he's been taking a kind of sideline approach to these, hoping that they do come to a deal. But like you said, Daytona, we could be seeing Congress stay in session through the weekend to hammer this out, because remember, government funding runs out tomorrow night. So
yeah, definitely going to be keeping our eyes on that. Last but not least, we had a little consumer news earlier, but now we got a little more. Google is now facing its third antitrust lawsuit. Andrew, can you believe it? First it was Facebook and now it's Google. What's the latest?
That's right. This is being led by the Colorado Attorney General. This lawsuit is seeking to end Google's monopoly in the search market. This is a bipartisan coalition of 38 attorneys general alleging Google illegally maintained a monopoly through a series of anti-competitive contracts and conduct, creating barriers for competitors. The multi-state complaint goes beyond the lawsuit filed by the DOJ and other states on October 20th. It alleged that Google improperly maintains its monopoly power in general search and search advertising through the use of what is called an exclusionary agreement. Also want to note, Daytona, that Europe and European regulators as well are taking issue with this matter of search. Does Google have a monopoly on search? So we'll be following that here on NewsNOW from Fox. We like to cover this tech news as well because it's so important to our everyday lives. And especially coming up, we will be having an interview in about an hour's time, in the next hour, with an expert on all things cybersecurity. So for our viewers who may not know, you might be following this major hack that is ongoing, Daytona. It's still taking place within several government agencies and several U.S. businesses, infiltrating their networks. As of now, we have not heard of any classified information being compromised, but we're going to have an expert on in the next hour to talk about that and kind of lay it out for us and why it matters to us to have these major hacks being undertaken at the moment.
Yeah, previously this conversation has been around the election, and we haven't heard about it as much for the election this year for these Russian hacks, but could be our Treasury Department that's kind of seeing these hacks coming in.
Yes,
so of course
a lot
you'll have
of different agencies Treasury, Defense, State, the IRS, the Postal Service, Department of Commerce. So we're going to break all of that down in the next hour because, all signs, Daytona, point to Russia as a likely culprit. So stick around for that. That'll be around 8:30 Mountain Time, 10:30 Eastern. So.
Well, thanks for joining us for this political rundown, all of the day's top headlines. If you guys have something you want us to talk about, go ahead and tweet at us at NewsNOW Fox. We want to be hearing from you. We're obviously catering to our viewers out there. We're streaming on several platforms, so you can always reach us on at NewsNOW Fox, our Twitter account, and you can find out where to watch us on newsnowfox.com. Pretty easy right there, right, Andrew?
Yeah, that's right. And, give us a follow as well on Twitter. We love to plug our Twitter accounts. I'm at Andrew Kraft.
And at Daytona News Now. We are going to be sending some of you off to a 2-minute commercial break, but when you come back, we got a lot more to get to here on News Now from Fox.